So, Darktide is great, but it's not finished. Let me explain. But as always, thank you very much for clicking on my video. You rock. It means a lot and I really appreciate it. I'll talk more about how rad y'all are in the outro. Anyway, enjoy. Alright, so as much as I hate to say this, Darktide is just not finished. Again, what we got is pretty friggin' great, but that doesn't make it finished. In this review, I'll be breaking down what Darktide has to offer, how it plays, how it runs, and I'm going to do my best to explain why I feel that Darktide is an unfinished game throughout some of the chapters in this video. And I want it to be clear right off the bat that I think Darktide is, like the thumbnail says, great. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's get into it.
There is only war.
If you've played the Vermintide games, you'll be right at home with Darktide as far as the combat goes. There's a lot of Vermintide's DNA here. But if you haven't played either of the Vermintide games, let me break down the combat for you. So, you have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. The melee weapons vary in style more so in how they look rather than how they play, but you will notice some differences regarding the play style when switching up your melee weapons. You have a light attack, which will be your primary attack whilst in melee combat. You have a heavy attack that you use by holding down the same button you use for the light attacks, and these heavy attacks are usually pretty devastating for your enemies. You will likely be hitting more than one at once and you will do more damage. You can chain your light and heavy attacks together for fun and brutal combos. And you also have an alternate move you can use that changes depending on what weapon you are using. For example, a couple of the alternate moves the Ogryn class has are this uppercut and this defensive shield move. It's fun trying out new weapons and seeing what kind of alternate moves they have. You also have the ability to block and shove your enemies. The shove may seem like a weird and unnecessary ability, but it's really good at staggering enemies, and I highly recommend using it.
Pushing can stagger groups of enemies.
Especially against armored enemies. Alongside all those melee options, you also get a special ability that is unique for each class type. I said this in my Vermintide review, but the special abilities really help spice up the combat and add an extra bit of flavor to it. Okay, let's get to what you really want to hear about, the guns.
How do I get a gun? Let me out. Give me a gun. I only have this shovel.
So the ranged weapons in Darktide are a blast. Pun intended, I guess. Anyway, there's a good amount of variety in ranged weapons. We've got assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, pistols, sharpshooters, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, crazy automatic big guy guns, laser guns, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but you get the picture. There's
lots of guns.
They all feel pretty great to use. I like the SMGs and assault rifles, but I have the most fun with the Ogryn's guns. They are all big and badass. The only ranged weapons I've had less fun with are the laser guns. And that's really just a personal preference kind of thing. I just personally don't like how they feel to shoot, and I'm also not a fan of their sound effects. But again, that's really just a personal preference kind of thing, and you might really like the laser weapons. I know one of my buddies prefers them, so they're not like universally disliked or anything. Anyway, I got way ahead of myself. Sorry. So these guns feel great to use. They're really responsive, explosive, and an all-around brutally good time. Aside from the laser guns, I think they all sound really amazing as well. Blowing monsters to pieces feels and sounds like blowing monsters to pieces. It's really satisfying. Both hip firing and aiming down the sights works great, getting more kickback but having more environmental freedom when firing from the hip, and getting it more accuracy but moving slower when using the sights. It feels right, and it feels good. You also get a melee ability with your ranged weapons, usually bashing or stabbing away your enemies. It can be really helpful in a tight squeeze. Other than your melee and ranged weapons, you will also get grenades, each class having different styles of grenades. These are super important to stay stocked up on because they can help destroy boss enemies really easily, and they're great for crowd control. There are also certain objects scattered throughout the levels that you can explode. These are also great for crowd control, especially if you're out of grenades or trying to save your grenades for more formidable foes. And I'm not sure where else would be a good spot to mention this, so I'm mentioning it here. Fat Shark added a sprint feature to Darktide, and I really love that it's here. Even though the characters in the Vermintide games move pretty quickly, I always wanted to be able to sprint, and I was often bummed that there was no sprint feature. So yeah, I'm happy to see it here. It's a welcome addition to the Tide series that I hope is here to stay. You can also dodge, side to side and behind you. It's crucial you get comfortable with dodging if you want to survive on harder difficulties and just have a better time with combat in general. Plus, the jump is mapped to the same button as dodge, so you'll be jumping a lot while dodging, and I find that fun and helpful. You can also jump over some stuff, and that can be really helpful in getting to a down teammate quickly.
Oh shit, I'm down. I'm down.
Oh fuck.
Alright, so that's how the combat plays. It can be a really fun time. Let's pivot over to the This was something I feel Darktide has fallen a little flat on. Now, I like zombies. I used to be an absolute zombie nut when I was a kid. The genre, monster, whatever you want to call it, has been so incredibly oversaturated at this point that I'll humor any unholy abomination over zombies. So the rats from the Vermintide games, the Skaven is what they're called, those nasty sons of bitches will always be infinitely more interesting and fun to me than zombies. Needless to say, zombies. That's what you'll be up against for the most part in Darktide. I'm sure there's some Warhammer lore that explains there's something other than zombies, but they're zombies. I don't want to hear any of that. The infected and 28 days later aren't zombies, they're infected kind of bullshit here, okay? Sorry. Let me reel it back a little. So we got zombies, but we also got armored zombies with weapons, evil dudes with guns. I mean, they're fighting alongside zombies. They have to be evil, right? Anyway, the evil dudes with guns vary in style a bit. You'll have evil dudes with like AR kinds of guns, laser guns, shotguns, snipers. Some are stronger than others. You'll also have more specialty versions of evil dudes. Also, I'm using dudes unisexually right now, okay? Cool. Back to the specialty evil dudes. We got flamethrowers, grenade throwers, evil dudes that throw nets on ya.
Fuck. Ah! Ah!
Nasty explodey evil dudes. You'll also find yourself up against some pretty cool enemies, my favorite being the Plague Ogren. They're similar to the trolls in Vermintide 2, and I loved those guys. There's also the Rusher guys, and they're just the same as the Rusher guys from Left 4 Dead 2. Like, the Hook Rat and the Netter are both fun and have a unique enough spin on them. They don't just feel exactly like the Lickers from the Left 4 Dead games.
I'm getting dunged!
But the Rusher is just the same as in Left 4 Dead. I also hate this enemy. They're easy enough to kill, but just annoying and make me miss the Rat Ogres somehow. One enemy they brought back from the Left 4 Dead games is the Witch.
Dude, there's an behind you, Ethan.
Oh no, I hear it! I hear it! I hear it! Ah!
Oh my god.
Oh, nice!
Or in this case, the Daemon Host. Demon Host? Well, I don't know. And they're way worse.
Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? What? Where's my bots? It's a boss? Why am I alone? Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. Somebody help me!
In a good way. Like, the Witch in the Left 4 Dead games always seemed too easy to kill, making its lore and the character's reaction to it feel off. But in Darktide, this thing is not to be fucked with, and I really love it. Like, if someone fucks up and gets this thing's attention, that can throw the entire match. And that's a good thing to me. It sucks when it happens, but it makes the world and enemies feel more believable. The Hunter or Assassin Rat style monster in this game is a Poxhound.
Whoa, whoa, a fucking dog! Holy shit.
And they're cool enough, but way easier to deal with than you'd expect. But yeah, they're cool. Darktide does have a pretty unique enemy called the Beast of Nurgle. It's a big stinky monster that'll eat you.
Oh god! Oh no, what the fuck? It ate me!
I really like this addition to the enemy roster. It's not super hard, but it's a bit of a sponge, so you'll get to hang out with it for a little bit. From what I've came to understand about Nurgle is that it's like shit and puke and like other nasty shit, and it's alive, or it infects things or something. I don't know, but it's awful, it's dumb, it's disgusting, and I love it. Okay, so that's a little breakdown of the enemy types. Now let me tell you about how they work. The enemy AI in this game is hilariously bad sometimes. Sometimes they'll just run right past you. Other times they'll just stand there and like wait a while to shoot at you. You have to be like inches away from them before they notice you. Sometimes it's like the AI can't figure out the level design and just run around in circles. I've noticed this the most with the pox puppies and other goofy ass shit. And for the most part, the boss style enemies, the ones with the boss health bars, can be taken care of with a few grenades, making them a lot less of a threat. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the Ogren enemies. Now don't get me wrong, I really like them, but they're almost as bad as the Storm Vermin in Vermintide 1, being that they can take forever to kill sometimes because of their armor. And like the Storm Vermin in Vermintide 1, I'll be swinging at the fleshy parts of the enemy Ogren and I'll still be getting told that I'm hitting armor. It's frustrating, but not that big of a deal, and I'm happy we have the various Ogren enemies, because they really help break up the monotony of the zombie and human-like enemies. I wish Darktide had more different looking enemy types, but with that said, zombies or not, the enemies still look pretty great, they're fun to fight, and have great sound design. Oh, and don't worry, I haven't forgot about Darktide's main boss, ? I really don't know if this is supposed to be like the final boss. This guy?
Someone's come looking for trouble.
He spawns a shield bubble around him that you have to break through before you can do damage directly to him. And each time you fight him, and you will be fighting him a lot, he has the ability to spawn with a different weapon. Depending on what weapon he gets will determine how easy the fight is. But all in all, it's a really easy and simple boss fight, and way less exciting than Snifferdingle, or whatever the boss rat's name is in Vermintide 2. This boss fight is a joke, especially since this is the one boss that you fight that doesn't randomly spawn throughout the levels. As like a first boss, this guy is great. And fuck, I played and loved Elden Ring. I'd be fine with this boss being repeated. I just really wish we got more scripted boss fights. Alright, let's do a quick recap of the combat chapter. The combat is fun, explosive, satisfying, and feels great. The weapons are fantastic and offer a lot of variety in the gameplay. There's some really cool enemies and some pretty lackluster ones, and sometimes they bug out. The final boss bums me out and is not even a final boss. It's just the only scripted boss. Sorry, I'm trying to be less pedantic. Ha! Said it right, I think. Anyway, before I get to the characters and how they play, let me break down. So, the story is pretty much non-existent. I'm sure there are people getting ready to write up the entire plot in the comments, but what I'm trying to say is the story is pretty much non-existent. Okay, fine. I'll tell you what's going on to the best of my abilities. The game opens with a pretty radical cinematic intro. What we learn from this intro is that it's the 41st millennium, the Imperium, whoever that is, has ruled for 10,000 years, and there is only war. And there's a specific war on a specific planet going on in the underbelly of the Imperium, and if that war is lost, so is the Imperium. After that, we move on to the character creator. So yeah, there are no main characters, at least not that you get to play as. Instead, you make your own character. And I'll talk more about the character creator and my feelings on that in another chapter. Anyway, after you've made your character, you find yourself in a space prison. Before you can find out about yourself or what's going on, the space prison is attacked. And your cell breaks open. From there, you fight your way through the prison until you reach one of the guards that were keeping you locked up. She's hurt, so you help her out, and in return she lets you escape with her. She takes you to a spaceship and you find yourself amongst other prisoners that escaped. And now you're all getting a chance to prove yourself to the Emperor by fighting off whatever evil baddies just attacked the prison. And that's it. Every few levels you'll get a cutscene that does little to nothing to further the plot.
And what do I get to replace them with? Dirtbag raw recruits like you.
Like this one, this lady just says, "You're making a name for yourself. Come back once you've made more of a name for yourself." Don't believe me?
You're making decent progress. I'll give you that. But I need more. So if you want to prove yourself, you'll have to work even harder.
There is no level structure. It's a bit similar to Vermintide 1 with the whole map setup, but it's worse in my opinion. Every hour or so, the levels will refresh and change up a little bit. I'll talk more about that in the level design chapter. But alas, there is no story progression through levels. You can pretty much choose to play any level right off the bat. There is no story tying the events from each level together. You're just doing tasks to make the Emperor or Inquisitor, I'm not sure which one, but yeah, you're just doing tasks trying to make at least one of them like you more. There's no conclusion. There's no big bad guy to fight. Honestly, I'm not asking for much. I don't care if there's any like character progression in a Horde PvE game. I'm just asking for something above the bare minimum. Not even like that far above or anything. Like, come on. All we get in Darktide is an intro. And don't get me wrong, the intro to this game is badass. It looks amazing, sounds phenomenal, and does a decent job setting things up and giving the player some exposition. But for someone who isn't well versed in the Warhammer universe, the intro being pretty much all we get is just not cutting it. Okie dokie, now we can move on to the... So I'm not sure how others feel about this, but I'd actually prefer playable main characters like in the Vermintide games. It just adds an extra layer of story and lore that help me better understand the game and the world it takes place in. And with this game already lacking in a story, not having main characters makes it hard to get immersed. I'll elaborate more on that in the sound design chapter. With that said, this character creator is good. There's a good amount of customization available. It's nothing crazy or innovative, but that's okay. There are enough options to create a character you'll be happy with. Although you can't play as a female Ogryn, I don't know why. Outside of the visual choices you get, you also get to choose a few other things to customize and personalize. You'll get to choose your homeworld from a handful of different worlds, and you'll get a handful of options to choose your childhood, growing up, and defining moments. And there are a decent amount of choices. You get to choose between 4 different class types. types: Veteran Sharpshooter, Zealot Preacher, Psychonetic? I'm probably saying that wrong, and the Ogren Skullbreaker, each having their own unique set of weapons and abilities. Some of what the Veteran Sharpshooter has to offer are more long and mid-ranged guns and awesome chainsaw swords. Some of what the Zealot Preacher has to offer are SMGs, shotguns, and really cool hammers. Some of what the Psychonetics have to offer are dual swords and, for lack of better words, magical staffs. And some of what the Ogren Skullbreakers have to offer are explosive and heavy ranged weapons, combat knives, and riot shields. So for the sake of being able to get this video out sooner than later, I decided I'd just main one character and went with the Ogren Skullbreaker. I really like how different the Ogren look in comparison to the other characters, including those from the Vermintide series, and I enjoy that they kinda talk like the Hulk.
Don't! Why are you all so puny?
It's not super original, but it's super enjoyable. They're a little slow, I suppose that should have been obvious to me, but it came as a bit of a surprise and took me a couple sessions to get used to. Other than that, I really like this character. The Ogren are obviously the tank, so the melee weapons you'll get when playing as them are usually big smashy kind of things, although they do have the option of wielding a combat knife, which isn't a big smashy kind of thing. The guns you get as the Ogren are super badass. I absolutely love the first gun you get as them, it just blows zombies to bits and it's incredibly satisfying.
Oh shit.
Heavy supporting gun.
What was that you were saying, sir? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
It's one shot per reload, and the reload is pretty slow, so I understand this gun not being for some people, but for me, it's a fucking blast. Another pun intended, I guess. Anyway, the gun choices for the Ogren are really awesome. The Ogren's special move fits into the tank build nicely, a charging ability that'll knock down huge hordes of enemies. It's good stuff. The 4 class types add a good amount of replayability, especially if you want to try out all the awesome weapons Darktide has to offer. Okay, before I get into the gameplay loop, I want to talk about the levels in Darktide look amazing. They throw you into the 40k universe masterfully. There's a lot going on in them that'll pull your attention and have you gawking at some really impressive set pieces, like a massive spaceship under siege. It's really cool. The sewers and slums look as grimy and slimy as you'd expect. The city corridor levels feel claustrophobic and look fantastic. The lighting and signs and all that good stuff bring these levels to life, and the big cathedrals look beautifully menacing. Although I feel there could be more variety in the levels, like I'd love to see what a swamp or a forest in the 40k universe looks like. But all in all, they look really great. They also play pretty great. Oh.
These games and their empty chests, dude. It's such a fucking spit in the face every time.
Yeah, every time you open a chest, it's like, you got nothing.
Yeah, fuck you.
They're super fun to run around. The visuals make exploring the levels really satisfying. It's not super easy to get lost. Honestly, I feel like the easier the difficulty, the easier it'll be to get lost. Because on harder difficulties, the amount of enemies sort of funnel you through the levels.
I don't even know if I'm running the right way.
You are.
Like I said earlier, there are explosive objects you can utilize in your carnage.
Exploding back.
There's plenty of ammo and grenades to find throughout the levels. There's still grimoires and things like that to find hidden in the levels.
There might be a scripture in one of these rooms, actually.
I don't give a fuck about scripture. I just want to survive.
The grimoires work a bit different than in Vermintide. Instead of just getting a health reduction, you get a health reduction that continually drains your health. It makes getting a grimoire more challenging, and although the reward for finding a grimoire could be a bit better, the personal feeling of pulling it off feels great. At least for me it does. You'll also find ammo packs you can place down for you and your comrades, and the health packs works this way also. Instead of just healing yourself, you'll place it down on the ground and anyone within a certain radius will get healed. You'll also come across these cool health stations. They might take away from the difficulty a bit on some of the easier modes, but once you get to some of the harder difficulties, they're crucial, especially when you're trying to get a grimoire all the way to the end of the level. Also, one of my buddies was telling me some of the 40k lore and how the electronics, like the computers and healing stations, are like all humans stuck in these horrible mechanical purgatories. And when you come across the health stations, they say hilariously sad shit to you. It's amazing. There are a lot of cool little world building things like that throughout each level, and I really appreciate them. The levels are long, some longer than others, and some depend on your knowledge of that level in order to determine how quickly you'll make it through that level. The difference in mission types help change up how the levels play nicely. Aside from these servo skull scanning missions, they feel a little obtuse, and I'm usually more inclined to do any other mission type. So all in all, the levels are fun, well made, and look really great. Let's get into the missions and Before I get into this chapter, I want to say Darktide and games like it are way more fun with friends.
Oh god, a dog.
Oh god, oh god.
Oh no.
It's on me.
God, I'm coming.
Watch out, there's a bunch of enemies to your right.
Oh yeah, there are. Holy fuck. Oh my god.
Murdering hordes of monsters with your friends is always a good time, and Darktide is no exception. So again, this game is a great time with buddies.
Look at this.
Alright, so there are 7 different types of missions: raid, assassination, espionage, investigation, repair, disruption, and strike. Let me break those down a little for you. During a raid mission, you'll be looking for 4 ammo crates to bring back to the Valkyrie ship waiting for you at the end of the level, all while fighting off hordes of monsters. For an assassination, you'll be working your way through the level and ending with a boss fight against the one special boss I mentioned earlier. In an espionage mission, you'll be once again fighting through the level, but these levels have 2 phases of defending a servo skull while it feeds false information to the enemy. Sometimes the skull will be interrupted and you'll have to play this minigame. It's pretty easy, but I like it. The investigation missions are my least favorite. I mentioned them earlier.
Like it's right. It says it's right here, but maybe it's on a different floor or something. I don't know what I do.
During these missions, you'll be following the servo skull around the level and periodically scanning things when the skull stops. This can be really annoying, at least for me.
Yeah, this mission sucks.
For the repair missions, you'll be looking for coolant containers and bringing them to a specific spot in order to repair the cooling system. Sometimes the repair will be interrupted and you'll have to do the same minigame from the espionage levels. After the repairs are done, you hightail it out of there. For the disruption missions, you'll be clearing out this nasty Nurgle shit and then holding your ground defending against hordes before getting the hell out. And finally, strike missions. Strike missions are the standard fight through the level and hold your ground until the level ends. After each successful mission, you will gain some XP, money, and some other currency types. You will also gain XP upon defeat. Once you've gotten familiar with Darktide, the gameplay loop starts to feel a little repetitive. For me, at first I was really enjoying the loop and the grind, but once I leveled up a little more and got more familiar with the gameplay, it all started to become a little less fun. Let me explain. The loop is, you check your penance and contracts, see which tasks on the list need to be done, choose a mission you feel you can cross one of those tasks off the list, or at very least put some tally marks towards them. Play the mission, repeat.
Let's go.
That's the loop. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go over the leveling system and the loot in this chapter, since that stuff is all part of the gameplay loop. You level up your trust level. This will unlock weapons, cosmetics, and more things to check out in the hub area. As far as loot goes, Darktide is pretty satisfying. You'll get loot via leveling up, completing penances, gifts from the Emperor, and the Armory. This all works really well. The Armory is a nice addition to the series. You can buy weapons and cosmetics from the Armory, and as you level up, you will unlock more weapons in the Armory. And I think it's pretty great. It's a little obtuse being that it refreshes periodically, but overall, the loot system works great. I never feel like I'm not getting enough stuff. Although I feel the gameplay loop suffers from not having a story backing it up and more structured ways of choosing levels. Like, the game feels like post-campaign gameplay from the start, and it's kind of odd. All in all though, the gameplay loop can be fun and addictive one day and boring and repetitive the next. And I highly recommend you play Darktide with friends. Anytime I was with my buddies, I wasn't even thinking about the loop. I was just having fun hanging out with my friends killing monsters.
They're not rat
No,
monsters.
no, 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 no.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, God, I'm getting sucked.
getting sucked.
I don't know. Something sucked me, dude.
Whoa, whoa, no, I got that.
Something else is back there. Something else is out there.
Oh god.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, big thing, big thing, big thing. Dude, I'm in a different planet. I'm in a different planet, guys.
What do you mean? What?
I got sent to the other world, the other place.
Did you fall through the map?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I don't know where I am. I'm below everything. You see me? Do you see where I am?
you on the map. Yeah.
I'm on the other side. I see the whole level, though. It's a big level.
The gameplay loop when I'm by myself, on the other hand, now that's when it gets repetitive. If you don't have buddies to play with and you're finding the loop getting repetitive, I recommend having another game on deck to fire up and play for a little bit before returning to Darktide. Okay, let's move on to something Darktide does nearly perfect. This game sounds stupidly good, but really quickly, because I'm not doing a graphics chapter, I just want to say this game's graphics are amazing. This game looks fucking great. Anyway, this game sounds amazing. It's an absolute treat slapping on a headset and turning this game on. All the music slaps so hard.
Yeah, dude, you gotta turn the music on. This is so good.
It's big and bombastic while still being subtle and atmospheric. It sets a mood, and that mood is to kick ass and ask questions later. Some of the tracks give me a warm, cozy, nostalgic vibe. The beat boops. We need more beat boops in video game music. Make video game music beat boop again. Sorry, the blank this again meme is dead, and I need to let it die. Anyway, there are these amazing organ segments that go so hard. Whenever those parts start up, it brings me back to Zombies Ate My Neighbors on Super Nintendo. Like, listen to this. Even though I wouldn't say the music in Darktide is like metal music, I would say Darktide is sure as hell metal as fuck, and I do get a bit of that feeling from the soundtrack. Also, I don't know where else to say this, and I feel it's slightly appropriate since we're in the sound design chapter, but the song I used for the intro is my band, and if you liked it, check us out on Spotify or whatever. We're called Aurora Bridge. Okay, thank you. Back to the sound design of Darktide. Not only does the music sound great and add a sense of drive when running through the levels, but all the sound effects going on are great. The ambient sound effects are great for building tension and atmosphere. The sounds of enemies running behind you can be really frightening.
Something chasing me? This guy. You. Oh, yeah.
And the monsters themselves sound great, and all the different enemy types have their own fun, unique sound effects.
The fuck is that?
The Daemon host is super great. She whispers to herself and just sounds super creepy. The fire enemies are always going nuts saying weird shit.
Jesus.
The Nurgle monster could sound a little more disgusting, but all in all is still good. Plus, shooting and smashing the monsters sounds phenomenal. It's as explodey, gooey, and crunchy as it should be. Visceral and nasty in a good way, you know? Shooting a zombie in half sounds like shooting a zombie in half. It rules. The character voices are good and the dialogue between them isn't bad.
I don't care where you came from. Today, you're soldiers.
And the voice acting in the cutscenes and for some of the NPCs is pretty great. Okay, so I mentioned I'd elaborate more about how I feel the lack of main characters affects the story in this chapter, since it has to do with the dialogue between characters. I guess without comparison, I wouldn't mind it, but having just played a ton of both Vermintide 1 and 2, and this game being a Warhammer game, I couldn't help but compare it to the Vermintide series. After playing so much Vermintide, I came to really enjoy the banter between the characters.
Come on, Cooper. Let me down with my boots on.
Now yes, it can get repetitive, but I like it. The dialogue between the characters in Vermintide made it feel like they were real characters in that universe. It felt like they knew each other and had gone on adventures together, and by the time you get to Vermintide 2, you know they had gone on adventures together. It adds more to the story for me and really helped me understand the Warhammer universe a bit better. The approach in Darktide is a little different since you get to create your own character. I can 100% see why someone would prefer to create their own character. I understand that for some, it may help with immersion, being able to create a character that either looks like yourself or reflects your personality in some kind of way. And I truly think that's great. I just enjoyed the dynamic between the characters in the Vermintide series. The dynamic between the characters in Darktide is similar, in that the characters do talk to each other throughout the levels. And I really do like some of it. Like, if you're playing as one of these big guys and there's another big guy on your team, they'll say adorable shit to each other like,
Ogryns can only trust Ogryns. Ready for another round, pal? You and me try the whole world, yeah? No biscuit. Hey, dog, off my pal.
But that is really just how I personally responded to the character dialogue, and you may really like the dialogue. So needless to say, the sound design is top notch. Now it's time for the dreaded...
Do you guys see this one in the sky over here?
So this really sucks to say, but yeah, Darktide isn't a finished game. There's no fully fleshed out story, there's no campaign mode, there are loads of glitches and bugs, the game crashes, they're adding weapons and features with patches, features like private matchmaking, things you'd or at least I'd expect to be there, and we get this coming soon bullshit on our screens when the microtransaction store is fully functioning. Like, can we all agree that we would have been a lot happier seeing the coming soon tag on the store instead of in-game features? Like, come on. And the optimization is outrageous. This is the only game I've had any trouble with on my machine. Hopefully this game runs on my computer. Was not something I thought about before saying that it would be the next review. Look, I have a GTX 1080 graphics card and an Intel i5-6600 processor. I'm running on Windows 10 with 16 gigs of RAM, and I made sure to have the game downloaded onto my SSD. So no, I don't have the most high-end machine, but I also don't have the lowest. And after switching my game over to the SSD, the load times got a lot better. Before I had moved it over, the load times were anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, and sometimes longer. Absolutely nuts. It isn't taking a short amount of time to load. Jesus fucking Christ, this shit takes so long to load. Holy guacamole, it takes forever.
Oh boy.
Come on now. Oh. Make sure to have Darktide downloaded onto an SSD. What? But I got that taken care of. So long story short, in the end, I just have to get used to my frame rate dropping. Honestly, isn't the worst thing, but it makes it hard to stay immersed. Oh my god, such dog shit. Oh no. Okay. Oh my god. Also, I have to have the game on medium graphics, which again isn't the worst thing, and I'm pretty sure these sorts of bugs have been universal amongst players, but just look at this nonsense. Are the zombies not there on your screens or something? There's one just running in place right here. What's happening to this one? What's happening to this one? You guys see this one in the sky over here?
There's nothing that to be done. You have to figure out which ones are real and not.
Oh my god, I just watched one just zoom off. No. They're all here. They're all zooming around. Okay, I don't have any of my clothes on. Just a blank slate right now. Oh, that guy is not even a body. See how long it takes for his body to show up. Oh my god, there's so many bodiless people. This has to... I typically love a good bug or glitch, but when said bug or glitch is frequent, causes me to get kicked from the match, or crashes the game entirely. Disconnected. I just got kicked.
There's too many things loaded.
Oh, you're back.
Oh, I am? Not on my screen. Oh, it disconnected me again. Oh, hey! Hi, guys!
You back?
And they're not going down on my screen still. They're not even attacking you guys on my screen. Oh my god. It's so bad. Yeah, I'm gonna get kicked again. There's no way.
No, they don't know they're dead.
Oh, there's one in the sky again. Oh, this one's alive. I can kill this one. Oh, now he's just running. Now he's just being sucked backwards. God. Yeah, it crashed.
Oh god, frame rate is going down.
Yeah, bro. Oh. My love turns to loathing. It's really too bad because the combat and atmosphere accompanied by the breathtaking visuals and sound design are absolutely stellar. I don't want to linger on this topic for too long because there has obviously been way worse cases of games being released unfinished. Overall, it's playable and there are things to do in it. That really shouldn't be like the bar though, but we gamers take what we can get. Alrighty, I have touched on all the bullet points I wanted to, so let me wrap this up with a drawing, a recap, and some final thoughts. Okay, quick recap. So Darktide has great combat, great sound design, good level design, a fun character creator, pretty outstanding graphics, a decent but repetitive gameplay loop, but it lacks a story, campaign, I really fucking wish there was a campaign, some in-game features, and it's buggy and glitchy. As far as my final thoughts, I feel this game has a ton of potential. I feel with some more time and patches and even some DLC or maybe a sequel that Darktide could be the pinnacle of the Horde PvE genre. When the game is running well, it can be a really great time, especially with your friends. The game is not too pricey. $40 is a very fair price for a video game these days. So do I recommend you buy Darktide? In the state that it's in currently, I'd recommend you wait until it goes on sale. You're not getting a full package, so you shouldn't be paying full price. But you do you. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. As of right now, I'm a little underwhelmed with Darktide. Again, I think there's an enormous amount of potential and I do enjoy playing it. So yeah, that's why I think Darktide is a great unfinished finished game. Oh, one last final thought on the game. I think it'd be pretty rad if Darktide had a PvP mode. I'd be garbage at it, but I think it'd be cool. Now, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support. My channel has gone from 30 subs to almost 300 subs. My Vermintide video has reached over 10,000 views. That's fucking crazy, guys. And I've gotten some incredibly sweet comments that mean the world to me. I'm so excited to be going on this YouTube journey with all of you great people. Think about subscribing and joining this awesome community we are cultivating here. And if you want to see me play and review something, just let me know in the comments. Alright, I don't want to take any more of your time. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and have yourself a wonderful day.
Gaming.